Hi, and welcome to Two Guys Philosophise with Sean Lake and Peter Wise. This episode is called Mental Illness Part 1, because we will be returning to this subject. Are we all a bit mad? Well, let's see where this goes. Enjoy, and if you do, please subscribe.
Okay, we're rolling, apparently.
We're rolling, apparently. Hello, everyone.
Hi,
welcome
everybody.
to Two Guys Philosophise.
Again, here we are.
Thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just on my phone. I know that's extremely rude, but just bear with me for a moment. Just checking what time of the day it is and what day of the week it is and what week of the year it is. I'm absolutely all over the place. And the reason is because today we've decided we're going to talk about mental health issues and personality disorders. Now, I want to start, if you will allow me, Sean, with this incredible list of reasons to be admitted to a lunatic asylum, and this came from somewhere in America. Unfortunately, I can't give you the source because I've forgotten where I got it from.
I think I pulled up exactly the same thing that you pulled up. I think I pulled up exactly.
So here are some of the criteria to be admitted to a lunatic asylum back in 1910. Okay, falling off a horse, being penniless, being an orphan, being physically deformed, talks to self. Excuse me if I'm laughing. This was real at the time. Kicked in the head, and you're off to the loony bin. I mean, disobedient. Oh my God! Unmarried mothers, being dumb. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Depression. Okay, love affairs. I mean, lunatic asylum.
What is yours dated?
Well, 1870 to 1910. Okay. Sunstroke. Asthma. I mean, I've got asthma. You've got asthma and they send you to a lunatic asylum.
No, well, listen, 1864, which was just like 6 years earlier than that, it was a little bit worse because you got put into an asylum for having intemperance and business trouble.
Yeah.
Also immoral life, novel reading.
Novel reading. Oh my goodness me. Religious excitement I've got here. Bad mothering I've got here.
Tobacco and masturbation. I like the way they go together. Tobacco and masturbation. I don't know how you smoke and you manage that, to be honest with you.
Hit by a wagon. How unlucky can you get?
Okay, yeah, no.
So,
no.
You know,
But how much more ridiculous are these things to what we are having, the criteria and diagnoses we get today?
Well, you know, mental health is a big subject. Today there are more medicines than ever before that you can buy to cure your so-called mental health problems. But first, I want to clarify, or I need clarification on what the word mental means, because all mental illnesses lie in the physiognomy of the brain, so they should really be called brain illnesses. No, I mean, am I right? Am I wrong? So, mental illnesses are clearly something to do with the brain not working in a usual fashion. Something to do with the genes.
Are mental illnesses not divided into subcategories like emotional, mental illnesses?
Oh, but there are so many subcategories, you know. So many names, so many different names.
So what is mental illness?
Well, this is it. This is the first question. What actually is mental illness? It's an illness of the brain, I suppose, which causes your behaviour to be unusual. But what do we mean by that, your behaviour to be unusual? There's always differing degrees. For example, take a condition like, start with OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, a lot of people have got OCD and they don't even realise they've got it. Like, I know I've got OCD. I like things to be lined up in a straight line. I like my work to be neat, you know, and to a certain extent, when I'm doing something, I need to finish it, otherwise it will be on my mind. Because what is OCD? Obsession. You obsess about something, which means you can't get it out of your head. Then compulsion. Then you perform the action that will relieve that obsession. But the problem is that obsession soon comes back, and that's why it's a vicious cycle. But OCD is one small example of a mental illness that can be on a sliding scale. At its worst, it's very, very nasty. You can't leave your room without closing your door 100 times. You have to wash your hands 100 times a day. You have extreme phobias and extreme routines which are completely irrational, and it affects your life in a very, very negative manner. Other people just have mild bipolar disorder. Nevertheless, what comes into question is the medication given to people with mental illnesses, not only bipolar but other mental illnesses. Because if you've got serious mental illness, as it were, or psychological condition or personality disorder, then you may well need medication. But there's too many people, as far as I'm concerned, who are taking medicines they don't need because they've been diagnosed with a new condition and there's a new pill for it. And again, the pharmaceutical industry is making more and more money as psychiatrists make more and more of these diagnoses.
Yeah.
So,
when we decided that we were going to tackle this topic, which we felt was both very important, because I personally suffer from at least 16 mental disorders according to the DSM, the DSM-5, so we needed to have this podcast. But my question is pretty much like the same as yours. Like, why, are we developing these names for things that we already have so that we can sell more drugs? I mean, I've pulled up a list of the latest 15 disorders put into the DSM-5, and it contains
the
things
DSM-5,
like...
just explain what that is.
That is the criteria for psychological disorders. So it gives you a list of criteria, and if you have 8 out of 10 of those criteria, then you supposedly have that disorder.
Okay.
For me, when I go through the DSM, I have 16 very bad disorders and at least 4 that are going to kill me imminently.
You're scaring me now. You're scaring me.
Yeah. But I mean, you have this one. You have this one too. I mean, and this one is rapid eye movement sleep behavior disorder.
But that's when you're dreaming.
Okay.
I mean,
that's what I've always thought. Okay, that's what I've always thought. I mean, but God forbid now that you dream longer than you're supposed to. They're even controlling our dreams now.
There is also something called nightmare disorder. Now, if somebody suffers nightmares every single night, is it a disorder? I said, well, it's not normal. It's not natural to suffer terrible nightmares every night. Can you medicate it? I don't know what medication you put someone on like that.
Sleeping tablets, sedative hypnotics knocks out your ability to dream.
And that's the other thing. There was something you were telling me earlier about this medication which treats women's premenstrual something disorder.
Oh no!
But also can help with ADHD and things like that, or
there's
completely different.
There's so many things that have been re-engineered, that have been on the market for years and years and years, have been re-engineered, and they're called off-label uses, which eventually become labeled uses, and then that product gets another name. I'll give you an example. Prozac, fluoxetine. Fluoxetine has a very nasty side effect for men, where a lot of men can't get an erection. They have sexual dysfunction. For women, it takes them longer to orgasm. However, the orgasm is way more intense when they eventually do. For men as well, the same thing. But now it's being marketed as a woman's Viagra under a different name. Okay. So they're repurposing all the side effects of current medications to deal with these so-called social pragmatic communication withdrawal syndromes.
Oh, it's just getting ridiculous now.
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder. Okay, in my mom's day, it used to be called a period.
You're
having a bad period.
Yeah. No, you're not. You've got a mental disorder.
You've got a mental disorder
now. You've got to take these pills now.
Prozac.
Look, here's a list of just a few of these personality disorders I picked out. Some of them are a little bit strange. Most people know what anorexia is. You have anxiety disorder, something called atelophobia, something called autophagia, bibliomania, which is collecting books, bipolar disorder. Then you have bipolar 1 disorder. Then you have bipolar 2 disorder. Then you've got Cotard delusion, which is when you think you're already dead. I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
I don't know how that would work. Depersonalization, delusional disorders, Ekbom's syndrome, when you believe you're infested with parasites. Then you have things like Gunser syndrome, grandiose delusions, mathematics disorder. My goodness gracious me.
I've suffered from that the whole of my life.
And now hopefully they'll have a pill they can give me.
They do. By the way, it's called modafinil, and it will help your cognitive function so that your mathematical ability will increase slightly. So, by the way, so will Ritalin. Ritalin will probably do the same thing to you too. So, they've already, I think, got that one planned out.
I mean, that's really just totally. I don't know.
Of course, you'll need a sleeping tablet at night to get to bed.
Anyway, I just can't see that there's any sense in that at all. If people take pills and become mathematic geniuses. How brilliant is that? That's just absolutely brilliant. But I don't know. Are there pills available?
Well, have you heard of the series Limitless and the movie Limitless?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
About a chap who takes a pill and this gives him the ability
to
use 100% of his brain. Yeah. Now that was based off of modafinil. Modafinil is considered a nootropic, which is an unharmful drug, supposedly, that will help with those things. With modafinil, you can stay awake for 3 to 4 days without any bad side effects or consequences, apparently.
Yeah.
It's there.
Anyway, I'll carry on. You've got things here like vertigistitis, polyantithetic syndrome, early arousal syndrome, trivial interaction aversion disorder, also known as TAID, linguistic paranoia, imposter syndrome, which means you doubt your own abilities, Stockholm syndrome, when you're abducted and you build up a good relationship with the people who abducted you. You've got obsessive love, obsessive compulsive, panic disorder, psychosis, narcissism. As far as schizoaffective disorders, you've got so many of them, to name a few: the schizoaffective disorder, schizoid personality disorder, schizophrenia, which is a serious one, schizophreniform disorder, schizoid personality disorder, and so on and so forth. There's so many lists. I mean, that's why I actually gave up being a therapist.
What I want to point
with all of this.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to ask you is obviously.
By the way, before you go in, I just want you guys to know that five of what I've just read you out were completely made up. Okay, and I doubt any of you will be able to pick up the 5 that we just made up.
Exactly, because I'll tell you how it worked today. Today we thought we'd do a little bit of an experiment. We'd do 5 kind of crazy diagnoses and 5 kind of other crazy diagnoses that we'd just make up out of our heads. And we really had to stretch, because you try and make up a diagnosis, you try and make up an illness, a personality disorder. What is it? You don't like picking flowers. I mean, that's, there is one, phobia, you're afraid of flowers, it's all there, it's all been done, it's all been put into boxes and categorized, and I think the whole agenda is to sell you tablets, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say, Peter, is obviously there are very serious mental illnesses out there. There are obviously very serious emotional, and nobody's denying that.
Right.
What we are debating at the moment is how far society is taking those diagnoses to the extreme.
Yeah. Okay.
Where ADHD. When is a child ADHD? Okay, is the child ADHD because he's in school, he's got he's got an active mind, wants to see what's going on outside, wants to listen to other things and not listen to a very boring person in front of a chalkboard. Is that ADHD, or is that an inquisitive, intelligent child?
No, I mean, in my day, your teacher would smack you on the hand with a ruler and say, get on with your work. the thing is, look, there is a difference between ADHD and ADD. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So in other words, you have times when you can't be bothered to do anything, and you have times when you're super active. If you're a grown-up, that's called bipolar. So,
really? So,
well, it's exhibiting the same systems. You know, bipolar mood swings when you go from being really, really depressed for days or weeks, and then you suddenly go to be over elated about things that, you know, life is so wonderful.
Interesting,
you know.
interesting, yes.
So, I don't know.
Take.
The brain is a very interesting thing. It is the brain that produces what we call mental illnesses. But the thing is, we're being depersonalized now by so many people having these labels. You know, oh, I am so and so forth. I am OCD, so I have to take this drug to do this. But this drug is not actually good for you. It releases the neurotransmitters, but ultimately the body will build up a tolerance, and you'll have to take more and more of the drugs. So how clever are the what do you call it, the pharmaceutical company? How clever is the pharmaceutical industry?
Oh yes, they will give you gabapentin. They'll give you gabapentin to deal with your OCD, but then the gabapentin will require you to get sleeping tablets, and then eventually something to calm your nerves, and then eventually. So it's a never-ending story of medication, unfortunately.
What about addiction? Addiction is talked about a lot, but it is still not properly understood. It has been called. Let me just excuse me about my coughing. Let me just tell you a story. I've been to 6 rehabs. Okay, as soon as you go into a rehab for addiction, the first thing you will be told is you have a terminal illness for which there's no cure.
Yeah.
Now, that's not exactly what you want to hear when you walk into a hospital.
And it's not at all true.
And you're suffering anyway with terrible anxiety and all this stuff. So, addiction is a big thing because people associate addiction with street drugs and illegal drugs. But that is absolutely not the case. It is quite clear that people are addicted to their phones these days. Addicted to going to the gym. You could be addicted to religion. You can be addicted to money, in fact, which most people are also addicted. You could be addicted to cars, to gaming, to gambling.
I think you can be addicted to anything that's going to take your mind off all the shit that is happening in your life.
But all the shit that's happening in your life is your addictions. You know what I mean? If you took your addictions away, which means taking your attachment away, because the opposite to addiction is not being clean and sober. The opposite to addiction is actually reconnection. People who are addicted have been disconnected from the world and disconnected from themselves in some way.
I was saying to you earlier, how sad is it that in this modern time we need to pay people to listen to us, to take time out to listen to our words, to listen. Not just to hear, not just to be there, but to listen to us. We need to pay people to do that. Psychologists, psychiatrists. How sad is that?
It is sad, but you know, there's the argument to be said for, you know, those people who clearly struggle with their life because they cry themselves to sleep every night because they cannot get the memory out of their head of when they were raped continuously for 5 years from when they were 6 years of age.
And when that happened 300 years ago when there weren't therapists, like what would somebody do there? Just get over it? No, they would go to the wise elders, or they'd go to somebody that they could talk to.
Yes.
A female member of the tribe. Because people were interested. And it benefited them to be interested in your life because you were a part of the tribe that contributed to that structure.
And you know what, Sean? The fact remains that the very best way to deal with problems of anxiety or depression, which are at the root of so many other problems, the very best way to deal with them is by verbalizing them to someone that you can trust in a confidential way. Because I can't talk to my sister about how much I, don't want to see my sister or something. That's not true, by the
Yeah,
way.
no, but I can't talk to my
can't
sister
talk to
about how
my-
many times I masturbate each day and how
Yeah.
many times I don't masturbate each day, or
Yeah.
like, you know,
What's your average?
You need something. It varies. So it varies on my stress levels. It really does. And you're the one that's deleting my
Your
my
what?
history, my internet history, my browser history, please.
I'm-
Like, should I ever die?
What, me?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I get
I don't
you.
want
I get
anyone to
you.
know what I was looking at while I was
So why don't you
while I
just-
was
why don't
calming
you-
down. Okay.
Why don't you just do it now?
Yeah.
But anyway, so
what
you know-
I was going to say though is there's a beautiful shamanic saying, which is probably not shamanic at all. Probably somebody Western made it up, but it is very beautiful. And I got this off Quote-Master, and it says, in many shamanic societies, if you came to a medicine person complaining of being disheartened, dispirited, or depressed, they would ask you 4 questions. When did you stop dancing? When did you stop singing? When did you stop being enchanted by stories? And when did you stop being comforted by the sweet territory of silence?
Wow. I mean, it's very powerful saying. There are a lot of powerful
Things to unwrap there, yeah.
like that. You know, around the place. It's like I don't really believe we know who we are as human beings. We just do life because it feels to us that we don't have any other choice. Then, you know, every half of people in the world, it's almost becoming a trendy thing now to go to see a therapist. If you've got the money, as Sean says, you have to pay money now. You go, who has got these best friends? I don't know. But I think there is also an element of professionalism involved, because as a therapist, you know, I was trained and I did read a lot of books on these different personality disorders and what to look for and how to speak to a client and how to have a relationship with a client in order that, because I'm not a doctor, I can't heal my client or my patient. What I can do is I can instigate them to heal themselves.
Give them the tools.
Yeah,
the
give them
skills.
that's exactly what it's taught. During therapy sessions, we give them tools, whether it be little things like little meditations, or things like just when you find your mind wandering back to a certain event, bring it to your consciousness and tell it to stop and make a conscious decision to think about something else. Otherwise, the wheel continues to turn. And slowly, it will stop. A lot of people recover from mild personality disorders, or you know, what would be called mental illnesses. But as far as the more serious one goes, schizophrenia, I mean,
But isn't that I mean, that's a physical abnormality in the brain, is it not?
sorry, what?
Schizophrenia.
Oh, schizophrenia.
It's
Yeah,
a physical
yeah.
abnormality. Yeah.
Schizophrenia is a serious one, isn't it? It's not.
Now, I'm not talking. I mean, those are obviously very serious issues that psychiatrists and doctors have a handle on. What I'm talking about are trending. Okay, trending things like dissociative identity disorder. So, from being multiple personality disorder to being, which was something cooked up in a book called Sybil, to, so it never really existed. Just to understand that, it didn't exist until the book was written, right? It became dissociative identity disorder. What the hell is that? Okay. Then it got divided into non-specific dissociative disorder, dissociative disorder, OOSD, OSDD, and these are all variations of the way people think. So I think that a lot of people are getting their internal dialogue mixed up with a psychological disorder. It's really okay to disagree with yourself. It's really okay to have an inner dialogue. It's a very natural thing to have an inner dialogue. But to lose your temper and take it out on your husband and then turn around and say, but that wasn't me, you know, that was my protector. Okay, it's a little bit of a cop-out for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a little bit of a cop-out.
I think we're struggling to find out that, you know, how the brain works really, because it's again a question of, you know, where do you draw the line between the bounds of what can be considered normal and what can be considered abnormal? And it seems the boundary of normal people, you know, is getting smaller and smaller.
Yes.
and probably the whole world is mad, or there's a case to be made for saying that there's not a single person on this earth who hasn't got some sort of personality disorder, according to the various lists and statistics that you'll find on the internet.
Well, I just think purely by nature, everyone has to have some kind of personality disorder. I mean, there is no perfect personality.
Well, by nature,
we are not perfect.
No, by nature, we're actually all addicts.
Exactly.
We want things. We want things.
We want to have things.
I suppose that maybe the difference between being, a hardcore addict and just a normal addict is the case, the instant gratification. We want things.
You want to kill yourself.
Even if you've got something that you're waiting to happen, like a builder to turn up, you're uncomfortable in the waiting. You're uncomfortable in the not knowing, and it can cause you to become angry with another person for no reason. So I think it's we're going to have to.
This is the top result.
Stop, my Google's speaking to me. Sorry. So you can deflect your anger on somebody completely different for the wrong reasons, and therefore it goes on and on and on. Until we learn to be comfortable with the not knowing, or you can label yourself with some sort of not so serious personality disorder, and go get your medication and be happy with it.
My question is it such a terrible thing to be different? Is it such a terrible thing to not fit into? No, they're not. Everyone. This is where I'm going to disagree with you. Everyone's becoming standardized. You need to do this. You need to have a job. You need to start at 8 in the morning. You need to come home at 6 at night. You're not allowed to get too happy. You're not allowed to now have too many eye movements. You're not allowed to have too many dreams. You're not allowed to. They're even encroaching.
You're not allowed to be bad at mathematics.
You're not allowed to be bad at mathematics. They're encroaching on your personal space so much so now that we're all becoming automatons. And if we don't comply to what is considered normal, we get fed medication. I, as an individual, if you had to take me to a psychologist or psychiatrist, would be in a mental asylum right now, because I by no means in any way abide to any of those social norms. Yeah. I do not get up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I get up when I want to. I do not do a job that I don't want to do. I do a job that I love very much. I have freedom.
Yeah.
I have freedom to move. I can get up and go right now. I have no attachments. I don't have the pension, the medical aid, the house to pay off. To some people that would be considered more or less a sin. I mean, like, really?
No, I hear you.
So what is normal? What isn't normal? And why can't we just accept people for being the brilliant people that they are, the individuals that they are? And why is it such a threat to society to have individual, original, creative thought?
I've got a couple of interesting stories for you, because the basis of therapy is trying to train your client to change the way they think, and it's almost always from negative thinking to positive thinking. The brain is indeed a strange and just a strange object. What is it? It's not a muscle, it's an organ?
It's a muscle.
I don't know what it is. It's a lump of grey cauliflower. But it's.
I like to exercise it every now and again, so I like to think of it as a muscle.
And there have been some extraordinary people in the case of who used to be called idiot savants, are now called autistic savants, who are lacking, have a problem with one part of their brain, but as a result of that problem, they display incredible abilities. And you mentioned somebody called Wim Hof. I can mention a guy, whose name was.
Wim Hof is known as kind of one of the leaders in epigenetics and changing your body and being able to adapt your body to circumstances. For instance, he climbed Mount Everest in a pair of underpants. He's done the Gobi Desert marathon without any water. I mean, he's really an amazing man if you want to research somebody really, really, really interesting.
Okay, well, I'm going to quote you a man who doesn't seem quite so brilliant in comparison now, but his name's Sven Eriksson, and he holds the world record for holding his breath underwater for 20 minutes. Think about it, 20 minutes. It shouldn't be possible, but he says he's trained his mind, whatever that means, to be able to do it.
Not to one up you, but Wim Hof, under laboratory conditions, has shown how he can control his immune system,
right?
His autoimmune system.
Right.
He can bring it up, he can bring it down. They can introduce pathogens, and he can get rid of them.
I wonder what mental condition, would that fall under mental illness? He's clearly mentally different in some way from us. But he doesn't appear to be sick. I mean, quite the opposite, in fact.
He's an anomaly. I mean, he's an anomaly. He doesn't claim that he does anything that anyone else can't do without practice.
No.
I mean, it's not like he's claiming he has superpowers, although they do call him, the Superman of.
Well, there's a couple of other cases I looked up. The case of Leslie Lemke, who had severe birth defects, and doctors had to remove his eyes. He also had to be force-fed because he couldn't swallow. He only stood up for the first time when he was 12 years old, but at 16, his carer found him playing Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto on the piano in the living room.
Yeah.
So what happened to the brain of that person? Do
you think that maybe it's all the brain power just being focused in on one creative endeavor, or do you think that it is actually a talent that is separate from? You understand what I'm saying?
Mm.
Are these people not just taking all their brain power and for some reason it's just focused on that area? Because they're obviously not idiots. They're obviously not.
Well, in the case of what they call autistic savants, they seem to have extraordinary abilities, but there's a sort of a payoff. There's a famous man called Kim Peek, who some of you would have heard of, who is called the numbers man or the memory man. He can remember dates and days and strings of numbers. He can read books. He can read each page with separate eyes, and he reads books and remembers words on specific page. If you ask him, okay, what line was this word on, he'll tell you the page number, and extraordinary things. And does that show us that we all have this ability to become extraordinary geniuses, or does another area of our brain have to suffer in order for that area of the brain to overcompensate in the form of brilliance or creativity? There's been many cases of comas, people who have woken up from comas being suddenly able to play a musical instrument like a prodigy, or speaking in a completely foreign language that they've never heard of.
But there always in those cases seems to be a trade-off.
I don't know.
You're good at exceptional at one thing, and not really very good at anything else. It seems to be that trade-off. But you do get people like people who have eidetic memories. I know somebody like that who can take a book they read at university, and you can say page 223, line 3, and they can read that to you.
Yes.
They see it in front of them. I've spoken. How on earth do you do that? How does that happen? And this person is a clever person. It's not like they're challenged in any other area. They're very normal, but they have this anomalous memory where from years back you can actually literally say page 23 of this book, what's the first letter, and he will tell you. How do you even do that?
It is quite it is mind-boggling. There's a case, of course, of John Andrew Ogden, who was an English piano virtuoso, and some say the greatest pianist that ever lived, and he was schizophrenic. I think the highlights of his career was about 50 years ago now. I may be wrong, I don't know when, but I wonder what medication he was on. I wonder what the fact that he was schizophrenic had to do with his genius-like abilities. There's a case of Orlando Serrell, who was a guy playing baseball, got hit in the head by a baseball, and woke up and found that he could. What did he find he could do? He also had incredible ability to calculate numbers and remember numbers and things like that. So it's to do. We're talking about brain plasticity to a certain extent, maybe, but are we all just? I mean, I would feel like a complete moron. Well, I am really, but I would feel like a moron walking around knowing that I had all these innate capabilities to do all these wonderful things, but I didn't know how to access them.
I hear you. I want to tackle your first bit of what you said, though, and you were talking about schizoaffective and people being seen as weird, and so. There is an artist out there called Aurora, and she sings the most amazing songs. She is obviously Aurora. I love you to death. I really do, but she's so special. And I'm going to use the word the sentence on the autism spectrum, because I don't think there's any other way to explain how you are. She has the voice of an angel. She gets her inspiration from nature. She is completely free. She's completely uninhibited when she's in front of a camera. When she's doing interviews, she's just herself. She's just completely normal. And in that normalness is her quirkiness. And her quirkiness is she moves her hands and she feels her words and she feels the environment around her. Whenever she's speaking to people, she'll do this and she'll do that. Now, that's to me synesthesia. I think she suffers from synesthesia more than she does from autism, because synesthesia, people with synesthesia are able to take numbers and see colours, or take colours and hear sounds from them, or take visionary things and get a feeling of an orchestra. It's synesthesia. I mean, that's something else that is awesomely interesting to actually even just look into.
It is indeed. The brain is not working in the same way. The brain doesn't work in the same way in every human being, and I can see and I can agree with your argument that they, whoever they are trying to invent more and more illnesses so they can put us all on pills just to keep us on this narrow, sort of dumbed down type of existence, so that we can't be really bothered to do this except keep in our own space, and that makes the powers that be happy because we're too doped up to rebel or to realise what's actually going on in the world.
My point is, Aurora would be in a mental institution if she wasn't making so much money for so many people and didn't have such a interesting personality.
Yeah, it's more than interesting. She's an incredible person. I've seen her, and even seeing her on a screen, it's almost like you're drawn into this person.
Just her openness.
I've had a lot of teachers and a lot of religious leaders, and they're nothing but teachers. But this young girl, was
22,
almost as if she wasn't human.
Yeah,
I could imagine. Hang on a second. This girl is incredibly evolved.
Can you imagine how uncomfortable that must make some people?
I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, can you imagine having that in polite society, in polite company?
A girl like that.
Can you imagine bringing that home to your?
But what is polite company? This is very Victorian. This is what we've been told.
But is it socially acceptable for me? While we're being interviewed, to like.
Is it socially acceptable? Justin Bieber did that. Justin Bieber was brushing his teeth.
But he's Justin Bieber, so Justin Bieber could take
do what the fuck he likes.
Whatever he likes,
Alright, so we're all on a path, we all want to be like Justin Bieber, so we can do whatever we like. I don't know.
Look, at the end of the day, we're all pretty much insane. It's the level of insanity that varies. I don't think that there is a normal. I think that there are quirky, talented, really incredibly gifted people out there who maybe sacrifice for their gift a little bit of something.
There's a couple of other cases which I want to bring up because they're absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah?
In an August 22nd issue of Brain, there was a case discussed of a woman who was discovered to have no cerebellum. And the cerebellum, I believe, is the back part of your brain.
This is
No,
cerebral
I don't know.
cortex.
This is whatever the cerebellum is. It's an incredibly important part of the brain, and is basically responsible
for higher function.
No, for all movement,
Yeah.
for motor control. And she had no signs of motor impairments, yet she had no cerebellum. How can that be possible? There's some other area of her brain taken over that function, and I don't know how that can be possible. I don't want to go into consciousness too much again, but it's somehow something to do with consciousness morphing itself in the brain, knowing what it needs to do.
Peter, in your research, did you come across a chap who, I think it was in the 18th century, who was a pretty normal guy, except his head seemed to be conked in a little bit, and when they did investigations they found out that he actually didn't have any brain, he only had cerebral fluid.
Okay,
Did you come across that guy?
I came across the case of a man, yes, a Frenchman. There was in fact another case, but it was anonymous. The man's name wasn't revealed because he wanted to keep it private. In 2007, of a man who suffered encephalitis as a child and was never diagnosed, and he went to the hospital complaining of minor pain in his leg, and they thought it might have something to do with nerves. So they gave him a scan, and they found he had no fucking brain at all. Well, not no brain, but he had only 2 centimetres layer of brain underneath his skull, and the rest of his head was fluid. Yet he functioned normally. What the hell is going on? I feel I'm getting madder and madder every day, and I want to do something else for a living.
Less and less is making sense the more the older you get.
There's Mozart, was playing, writing songs when he was. Look at all the kids all around the world, age 4, 5 years old, who are piano geniuses or instrumental geniuses. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's the blind autistic Derek Paravicini, who some of you may have heard of, who one day just ran into his music teacher's office and sat down and started banging away on the piano, and this blind autistic kid. And he was taught by this man whose name escapes me now, beg your pardon, and eventually he became absolutely prodigious. He can play 2 pianos at once. Standing in the middle of 2 pianos, and he's always in such a good mood. He's so happy. We tend to feel sorry for he's autistic. Someone, she's Down syndrome, poor girl. They're happy people. Who the hell are we to judge them? You know what I mean? Also, Kim Peek, who I mentioned before, was known as a happy man. Thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands, and even millions of people have shook hands with this man Kim Peek because he just loves saying hi to people. I mean, isn't that something wonderful? Yeah. We started off by talking about mental illness and what's it all about. Somehow we're just, to me, giving labels to different parts of our personalities that we all have. I'm not just one object known as Peter White.
No.
There's lots of different parts to me. Some can be a bit damaging, some are, some not. But to me now, it's just getting out of hand.
I've got multiple personalities. I've got angry me, I've got happy me, I've got happier me, I've got not so happy me, I've got, you're right. I just think a lot of people look for a lot of excuses, and I think they're just way too easy. The little psychological excuses that we all come up with for not wanting to take responsibility for our own actions. I'm depressed. No, you're not depressed, you're lazy. Okay.
I mean, there is actually a name for, believe it or not, for when you wake up from a coma and start speaking in a foreign accent.
Really?
And it's called foreign language syndrome or foreign accent syndrome.
Well, what else?
So I suppose you have to find a label for all these things to be able to put them in the book so that people know what to do about them. But are we not going over the top now a little bit? Everybody's on some form of antidepressant. Why are we all so depressed?
Psychotic.
Or am I wrong? I mean, tell me that I'm wrong. Please tell me that the world's great and happy and everyone's content, because here in South Africa it certainly doesn't seem that way. You know, maybe in your country it's different, but please let me know. Are you happy or do you struggle? Because for me, I know I struggle, but I'm happy sometimes. Enough. I'm happy enough.
I think that well, as you know, I think the joy is in the struggle. I think we're here to struggle. I don't think it's here to be a piece of cake. I'll be that with psychological issues or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's definitely an interesting topic, and it's definitely dynamic, and it's definitely changing all the time. And there's different theories on addiction now, different theories on mental illness. They're now saying, instead of telling a schizophrenic to ignore the voices, to take the chlorpromazine, to develop a relationship with the voices.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to the voices.
Yes.
They're not your enemy. They're your friend. You can make them your enemy. So there's that approach now, as opposed to the pumping pills down in somebody's throat and making them such a zombie that they can't think anyway.
Right.
So in some ways we are progressing.
I think some people do have extraordinary mental powers. Apparently, there are people who can speak to the dead.
Apparently,
you've seen them on TV. Is that an extraordinary mental power? No, you're just a con man. In fact, I have to tell you a story of when I went with my daughter, Shayna. She was 12 at the time, and we went to the local fair. We were living in London, the local gypsy fairground. Were you there? You're a gypsy, but you might have been there.
Gypsy. Are you going to say something bad about gypsies? I'm bound by the gypsy code to kill you if you say anything bad about my clan.
And what I will say is they're a clever bunch.
They are.
So there was this gypsy fortune teller, and Shayna said, Dad, can we go? How much? £5. Okay, go. And she went in about 10 minutes, and then she came out and said, Dad, you have to go in. It's brilliant. So £5 to keep my daughter going. I went in there, she sat down, blah blah blah, and she said, I feel like you've got something to do with music about you, and you guys know me, I'm the most brilliant musician on the planet. Of course, now I am a musician.
Freddie Mercury so stole
and it actually shocked me for a second. I thought, how could she notice by looking at me I'm a musician? And she said, are you travelling at the moment? Because I get a sense of you being, unstable. And I was travelling. I was travelling around Germany at that time. And I was actually shocked, because this went against everything I believed in. And she was getting these hits, and I was thinking, what the hell? And I went out, and afterwards, it became apparent that
there were hits.
No, what happened was, this gypsy fortune teller had told my daughter, or had made my daughter tell about me. So she'd been asking my daughter, what does your dad do, what's he doing at the moment, what's he like, and then the gypsy fortune teller comes back, and I think I've got my money's worth. Unbelievable, man.
Now, being a gypsy and having told fortunes, I will tell you quite honestly, full disclosure, I am going to be cursed by the gypsy kings and queens and princes and princesses of the world today, but a lot of what we initially do to get into your energy is called cold reading. So what you wear, how you carry yourself, how you look after yourself, what your hygiene's like, what kind of jewelry you wear, what type of shoes you have on, are they looked after, your teeth, your eyes, your hair, all of that tells a story. I mean, it all tells a story, and that story can be very, very, very convincing to lead on to the next bit of it, which is the tomfoolery. You know? I mean, I would look at Peter now as a psychic. I hope you don't mind, Peter. And I would say, well, you're not really that interested or concerned in like social interaction with people. You seem to be a little bit of a loner.
Okay.
You don't really go out of your way to look good for people. You're not interested in impressing people.
Right.
Although you do have a little bit of an ego because you do like to be heard and be seen, and every now and again.
Yeah.
You are not.
that's
You
right.
are not. You are not in any way attached to things like jewelry, large cars, and stuff like that. Maybe in your youth that was an aim that you had, but as you've grown older, you realise the uselessness of all of that stuff.
I've got my own psychic reading here. No charge. Brilliant. He's right.
For you, I see in the future peace. I actually see you moving in the direction of maybe a bit of solitude.
Okay.
Maybe even moving to a place where you find more solitude.
Okay.
Into
the grave.
Yeah. And I see your life hasn't been hard. There have been troubles and turmoil and stuff like that. But your life has not been that hard.
Okay, you don't need to give too much information away.
All I'm doing is I'm looking at the wrinkles of your eyes.
Yeah.
You smile more than most people smiled. So your life was not that bad.
Okay.
It's your teeth are whiter. Your teeth are whiter and more looked after than most people. So you obviously.
Yo, man, I wish I could say what I want to say now, but I can't.
So that is cold reading, and it's so convincing.
That you were great until right at the very end there, where you commented upon my dentures because they're not my real teeth.
I did not want to tell the audience that. I was being nice.
Okay, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Nostradamus. Okay.
Nostradamus. Yes.
Nostradamus. Was he considered mentally ill?
Well, he used to consume a lot of nutmeg, so I would, which was a psychedelic. So
and that would make you mentally ill.
It would make you see vision. It is one of the visionary drugs. It does make you incredibly nauseous as well, but it is one of the visionary drugs. And I've always believed that you need to be out of your mind to observe the mind, and I think that's where a lot of great people, including Michelangelo, Da Vinci.
Yeah.
All did it was through.
Look, I don't know Nostradamus. His writings are very cryptic. They could have a lot of different meanings. I'm not going to get into a debate about that now.
Nostradamus.
I don't really want to. There's been too many debates about him already.
Yeah.
There was Edgar Casey as well as another famous fortune teller who used to go into a
sleeping
trance.
prophet.
The sleeping prophet. Yeah. Was there something wrong or different with their brains? Were they on drugs? I don't know. Did they have personality disorders? Did they have, is what's become clear to me as we've been talking is that we all have many personalities inside us, and we have some that are more dominant than others. And depending on which personalities are dominant, it could cause problems in our lives.
Would you say personalities,
in that case, seek treatment.
Yeah. Would you say personalities, or would you say fragments of a personality? Because a different personality kind of indicates a different person. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes and no.
It's not like
I don't. I don't quite understand what you're saying.
Although there are these different thoughts in my head and different dialogues in my head, that doesn't mean to say it's a different personality.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So by saying we've got a lot of personalities, all right, I don't think that's correct. Maybe we've got a lot of personality traits that are
okay. I stand corrected if I said that
fragmented maybe that we work in. But the whole concept, I have a hard time trying to accept the idea that there are people who claim to be more than one person in one body.
Yes.
I can understand fragmentation, and I can understand compartmentalization, and I can understand disassociation from a traumatic event, but
I think
just
there's a lot of people who
can't-
can't understand these things.
Yeah, but
You just can't.
two people, one body. Which soul? How does soul go? How does? You know,
I don't know. It's for you guys listening in. Or
maybe there's
watching
somebody
in.
there that here.
What do
that is
you hear? Because I believe everyone hears a narrative in their head, whether it's a monologue or a dialogue or a whole debating society, as it is in my case. I'm interested to know is when you hear other people speaking in your head, do you hear them speak in their voice? And I imagine the vast majority of you do, or do you hear them speak in your voice? So you're reliving experiences over and over again. The brain, when you're in a conscious state of being awake and aware, is never at rest. That's why it's so difficult to get to the place of no thought. So look, we haven't got long. We started with mental illness, and it was going to be a big subject. We discussed only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, well,
really.
this is the thing that I really want to tackle, Peter. But it's something that I've never really looked into before. It looks like a really deep rabbit hole, and it looks like there's a lot of fraudulent stuff out there.
There
it looks
is.
like there's a lot of like real stuff out there, and I'd like us to spend some time on that. It's really interesting to me. I find it really interesting.
Yeah.
You know.
And on that note, I think we can call it a day. There's so much more we can discuss. We will come back to this subject,
I think we definitely need to
Yeah.
revisit.
but I'm actually feeling a bit brain dead. I don't know why.
I'm going to go take a swim now and just cool off
Yeah.
the CPU.
Too much info.
Thank you for joining us, folks. Please do subscribe, do link, do press buttons, do whatever you need to do to get us out there. We live in South Africa, we need money. Right. Cheers, folks.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, and you all have a lovely day.